going to just move up here to channel 1. I pressed this button and I moved so I could see my channel 1. If I select, I have to select channels on this console to work on them. That's the number one thing that you do on a digital console. Before I make a change, if I want to work on Janice's vocal mic, well, number one, I was on wireless 1, I have to select wireless 1. Okay? That tells me now I have selected that channel, and this becomes my channel strip. If you remember on analog consoles, you have a preamp or a gain or a trim knob that's at the top. That's this section. And I can push a view button and kind of see what's going on that section. I like to live in my EQ screen. And I'll show you why. You can see I did some EQ on wireless 1 vocal mic. Power this up. They do use AA batteries, so you'll need a complement of AA batteries. 1, 2, hey. There's a built-in real-time analyzer on each input as you look at it. For instance, since I have this selected, you can see the different frequency bands on the RTA. How many are familiar with an RTA? Okay. The RTA basically allows us to see the full spectrum of frequencies. And so, for instance, if I ran this into feedback, and every system, any system can be run into feedback. Okay? Feedback is an operator not knowing where the limits are. And so, that is basically what we call operator error, because I have to know and set up these microphones in such a way that I know I'm not going to go into feedback. What feedback is, and pardon me if I'm telling a lot of you some things that you already know, feedback is the source mic hearing itself through the speakers. It gets so loud that it creates this cycle, and it begins to cycle, and it cycles so fast that you hear that. Okay, that's what it is. So, just for demonstration sake, I'm going to run this mic, and I'll control it so it doesn't get, but I'm going to run it so we can see the frequency at which it's going to ring. So I'm just going to keep running it high.
There you got it.
Somebody's phone. Oh. 1, 2. I'm going to have to really gain it up here. Yeah. I'm going to gain it up and kind of let my mic. This is something that you don't normally do, but I'm going to demonstrate.
That's me.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's in the other room.
Okay. So I'm going to touch my gain knob here. We're working on wireless 1, and I'm going to demonstrate how to make this mic ring. So I'm going to keep gaining. 1. Start to hear a little high frequency. Now watch your display. That's in that 2K, 4K area. So now, as I'm tuning that in, I could actually go in with my EQ and do a little notch at the 2K, 4K area. But I gain that way out of what you really need just to demonstrate what that RTA can really help you. Let's say you're doing individual head horns. Now, I'll give you a brief instruction on microphones and head horns. Get those things, I know you probably know this already, but you got to get them as close as possible. And those sources, if you'd like to pull one out. Microphone placement is a big key. And so, when you're ringing those out, I've done EQ for those wireless body packs. And I'll select, like wireless 3, you can see the EQ's a little different. The notches for that mic are different than the SM58. So there's the EQ for the SM58 wireless. There's the EQ notches that you can see there. This will help your knowledge of EQing more than you've ever seen on an analog console, because now you can actually see what I'm doing. So if you notice the width of some of these notches, that is controlled by Q. This is the EQ section. And so for demonstration, I'm going to recall the training because since I was gaining this one up, I'm going to go back to my scene and go over, highlight training. I'm going to load number 2, load, and yes. So now my gain should be back to normal on that channel. So with that in mind, gotta get back. We're going to talk about EQ, and I'm just going to work on this channel a little bit and show you so you can kind of hear the changes made. So I'm going to select wireless 1. Now, you see that overview screen? That kind of gives you an overview of everything. When I push the home button gave me the overview. I can actually push the meter button. I can see, good catch. I could actually see that the meter going, routing, not anything that you're going to want to get into yet. So back to the overview. Now I'm going to push the view button on the EQ section. So, showing you what these controls do. There's a high mid, a low mid, and a low. High button selects this EQ so I can work on the high band. High mid, you've got 4 bands to deal with. 4 bands to deal with. Now let me show you what Q does. Not only are these bands movable, frequency selectable, but the width that I affect the signal is with Q. All right, so I'm going to boost one so it'll sound kind of bad here for a second. I'm going to boost it. 1, 2, okay. My gain, I boosted it up. Now I'm going to play with the Q here. I can make it really small so that I don't affect as much, or I can make it really wide so I affect a lot. So, on your analog consoles, you never got to see the Q. It was usually fixed, and you only had 1 band, and it was generally a 1 octave. So, now you have the ability to affect it multiple ways. So, and that is for every band, high mid, low, and high. So you have the ability to really do some fine tuning. So since that sounds kind of bad right now, let's recall, go to scenes, tab over to scenes, and load. Load, and yes, now I'm back to where I started. And I know these are quick movements. Again, I recommend you ask Karen, say, Karen, I'd like to schedule morning of such and such day to sit by the console, become familiar, because just sitting here and looking and reading this section and this section and this section, you become familiar with where things are laid out, and you can push this button and see my mic channels, you can see my wireless channels, you can see my aux in. This computer is the feed coming from the stage. If they plugged in audio at the stage, that's where it would show up. And it is also grouped green and green. It's grouped over here on my DCA. Now,
That's what we're talking about Janice doing,
plugging in her computer.
or,
No, for Janice will probably use the handheld, the monitors, the track lines. So she'll use everything that you have. We'll get to that.
okay.
That next, let's say a band comes in. But for now, if Janice comes in, she's got a vocal mic, set up monitors, track, and store, and it's a nice gig. He doesn't have to haul in a lot of gear, and he gets to pull his track out at night and walk out. So anyway, if somebody was doing a computer presentation, you would use those lines. But now we do need to know how to set up a monitor mix. So let's do that right quick. Who would like to carry one of those monitors and plug it in?
The guy in red.
The guy in red. Okay. Now, let me grab this cord right quick. Everybody familiar with these speak-on connectors? Some of it? Anybody not familiar? Okay, Karen's not. I'm going to show you right quick.
Pretty easy.
There's a notch, a large one and a small one, and it goes in
Keyed.
and then turn. And then it has a pull. I have to pull it and then turn back and pull out. And the same connection is on stage. So I'm gonna let
Fred.
Fred go up there and plug in a monitor, and we'll
We'll monitor.
we'll turn some music.